And then proceed with your testimony.
Why don't you try the other one?
Go ahead. Try the other one. Well, here you Hold on one second, we're just little technical difficulties here. As soon as we get the signal, we'll start.
Good? Okay. Good afternoon, Chairman Squilla and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. My name is Rebecca Swanson. I'm the Director of Planning for the Department of Licenses and Inspections. I'm here to provide testimony on Bill number 180079 as amended, which will amend Section 9204 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sidewalk Vendors in Center City. This section of the code has not been significantly changed in 28 years. Since changes were last made, the vending landscape in the city has shifted drastically. Vending in Center City has become quite lucrative, and the limited number of vending locations have become coveted. These locations are assigned through a lottery process open to all licensed vendors. The process was designed to give all vendors a chance to move into Center City every time an existing location was vacated. But over time, L&I has found that locations are simply not being vacated with any frequency. Instead, vendors who wish to stop vending and who would otherwise simply give up their location so that it could be reassigned through the lottery are selling or otherwise transferring their location to another vendor. To combat this, the proposed bill changes the process for obtaining locations for sidewalk vending in Center City. The changes include reducing the number of licenses that can be issued to an individual from 2 to 1 and requiring that carts and stands be operated only by the licensee or an employee. It also changes the lottery selection process and requires annual inspections of each licensee by L&I to ensure that the proper person is using the license, that the location meets all code requirements, and that the licensee has not received more than 3 code violations in the previous year, which can lead to license suspension or revocation. These changes are necessary to better assist L&I's vending unit in uniformly enforcing the code and regulating the rampant illegal selling and transferring of vending locations. If illegal transfers are reduced or eliminated, vending locations in Center City will open up more frequently. This would provide opportunities for other licensed vendors throughout the city to operate in Center City, which would increase the diversity of food and products sold here. These changes benefit both the public and our vending community. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the department's testimony. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? Seeing none, is there anyone else here to testify on Bill number 180079? Seeing none, thank you. Ms. Kelly King, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 180102, an ordinance amending Section 9205 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sidewalk Sales by prohibiting vending on both sides of Haverford Avenue between Brookhaven Road and Lansdowne Avenue, all under certain terms and conditions.
Good afternoon, Chairman Squilla and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. My name is Rebecca Swanson, Director of Planning for the Department of Licenses and Inspections. Here to provide testimony on Bill number 180102, which would amend Section 9205 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sidewalk Sales. The bill would prohibit sidewalk vending on both sides of Haverford Avenue between Brookhaven Road and Lansdowne Avenue. The department has no objections to this bill and is prepared to enforce its provisions should it become law. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the department's testimony. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, anyone else here to testify on Bill number 180102? Seeing none, Ms. Kelly King, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 180179, an ordinance amending Section 9205 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sidewalk Sales by exempting sidewalk sales by owners and tenants of properties on both sides of 22nd Street between Lehigh Avenue and Allegheny Avenue, and by permitting such activity under certain terms and conditions.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chairman Squilla and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. My name is Rebecca Swanson. I'm the Director of Planning for the Department of Licenses and Inspections. I'm here to provide testimony on Bill number 180179, which would amend Section 9205 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sidewalk Sales. The bill would permit the owners and tenants of properties on both sides of 22nd Street between Lehigh Avenue and Allegheny Avenue to conduct sidewalk vending. The vending must be set up next to the building line and must be accessory to the business conducted in the abutting property. The department has no objections to this bill and is prepared to enforce its provisions should it become law. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the department's testimony. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Just for the record, I'd like to note that Councilwoman Quinona Sanchez is present for the hearing. Please pull the mic up to you, state your name for the record, and then proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon to Councilman Mark Squilla and to Curtis Jones Jr., Bill Greenlee, David O., and also to Councilwoman Maria Sanchez. My name is Thera Martin, and I'm here on behalf of the North 22nd Street Business Quarter. I've been the Business Quarter Manager for the last 5 years along North 22nd Street from Allegheny down to Lehigh Avenue. And I thank you for allowing me to offer this testimony today. The North 22nd Street Business Corridor historically was a thriving, well-traveled business corridor by car and foot in the city of Philadelphia. At the height of this corridor, there were up to 135 businesses along the corridor at any one time. Now, in the year 2018, we have 110 businesses that are open and operating, but as the economy has changed, so has the financial gain for small business owners. In other words, many of them are struggling and they need every trick in the book to stay alive and to begin to thrive once again. Today, we find that small business owners have to do at least 20 different things to draw attention to their stores and to get shoppers to come inside and spend money. While most professionals in PR, advertising, and marketing will advise business owners to buy advertisement time on radio and television and to purchase ads in print media, that's easy to say, but not always easy to do if your income isn't great at your place of business. One tried and true way of attracting shoppers into a place of business, however, is when you offer sidewalk sales. We see that practice happening in many parts of the city. However, we also understand that sidewalk sales or vending is not allowed everywhere in Philadelphia. Currently, along the North 22nd Street Business Corridor, no vending is allowed, and ironically, it was business owners of North 22nd Street years ago, when former Councilwoman Donna Reed Miller was in office, that the business owners asked for a no vending law. However, their ask was somehow misunderstood. From day one, North 22nd Street owners have always, by majority, wanted to be able to offer sidewalk sales and to vend outside in front of their buildings where they rent or own the property. Business owners like Alvin Little, who operated Female Fashions on North 22nd Street for 30 years, Ray Murphy, who owned and operated Tommy's Men's Store for over 40 years, and Lorraine Savage, who owns Lorraine's Upscale On-Sale Boutique and Lorraine's 2 unisex beauty and barbershop along North 22nd Street Business Corridor, are smart, sharp, and savvy business owners. They know you need to have those sidewalk sales. They would not cut off their nose to spite their face. They were three of the main business owners years ago when the issue of vending first came up that pushed for vendors who do not have a business or a storefront along the corridor to not be allowed to set up their tables and vend outside in front of the business owners' storefronts. But to be very clear, the business owners themselves who pay rent or own a storefront on North 22nd Street definitely want to be able to do what we see some other business corridors doing, and that's having the flexibility to set up a table within the legal requirements of the City of Philadelphia License and Inspection Department and sell their wares. We thank all of you council persons for hearing about our plight, and in particular City Councilwoman Cindy Bass, who we sent a letter to ask about seeing if we could get this law tweaked, and working on our request for us and on the request of our Business Association President Ken Curry. This process seems to be moving forward expeditiously, and we sound like we're getting the support that we need today, and we cannot thank you enough for your attention to this matter. Spring is here, the summer's right around the corner, and if we're lucky, we're praying that the no vending law is revised and soon and very soon makes the changes in the wording we're requesting so that by late spring, hopefully, or early summer of this year, smart thinking business owners will be able to legally set up their tables and have their sidewalk sales where they can sell some of their merchandise outside in front of their respective addresses and draw shoppers inside to raise their revenues. I want to thank each of you for allowing me to offer this testimony this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Jones?
So, first of all, because of your broadcasting background, that sounded like a commercial for radio. But you gave me a flashback about North 22nd Street, Alvin Little, Tommy's Men's Shop. I still have shoes and suits from him.
Yeah.
And Holt's Optical, is that still open?
Yes.
Those are great institutions that have been there decades. And I understand, and I was sharing with my colleagues, I'm getting old because I remember when they asked for no vending on that corridor. I was with PCDC at the time, so things do change.
Yes, they do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Is there any other questions? Seeing none, is there anyone else here to testify on bill number 180179? Seeing none, Ms. Kelly, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 170925, an ordinance terminating a no parking regulation on Ivy Hill Road between Mansfield Avenue and Hazelwood Drive, northeast entrance, south side.
Please state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony. Dave.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is David DeLugos. I'm a district traffic engineer for the Department of Streets. That's who I'm representing right now. I'm here today to offer testimony on bill number 170925. The Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. This regulation was established on a trial basis beginning on November 21st, 2016. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great testimony. Please proceed. State your name for the record and
Good afternoon, Chairman Squilla and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. My name is Jeremiah Last. I'm here to testify on bills number 170925 and 170926. I'm a resident of the 1000 block of Hazelwood Drive. I've resided there for the past 12 years. I've been employed by the City of Philadelphia Fire Department for the past 29 years. I would like to thank Councilwoman Sherelle Parker for introducing these bills, which will solve the available parking and traffic flow issues on Hazelwood Drive. I have witnessed the impact of available parking during and at the construction of new homes on Hazelwood Drive. If one resident has an event, available parking on the block is severely impacted. Hazelwood Drive is a loop street that is not directly connected to other blocks, with the exception of Ivy Hill Road. There are 36 homes on Hazelwood Drive. Allowing parking on Ivy Hill Road would greatly assist with available parking for residents and visitors. In addition, allowing Hazelwood Drive to be a permanent one-way street would greatly improve traffic flow and protect children living on the block. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, is there anybody else here to testify on bill number 170925? Seeing none, thank you. And Ms. Kelly, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 170926, an ordinance establishing a one-way regulation on Hazelwood Drive at Ivy Hill Road.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name, again, is David DeLugos. I'm a district traffic engineer for the Department of Streets, who I'm testifying before today on behalf of. I'm here to offer testimony on bill number 170926. The Streets Department has no objections. This regulation was established on a trial basis beginning on December 6, 2016. Thank you for the opportunity to appear for it. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. You want to add anything else? I know you said that in your previous testimony.
No, my previous testimony was suffice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions? Seeing none, is anyone else here to testify on bill number 170926? Seeing none, thank you so much. Ms. Kelly, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 180004, an ordinance legalizing an existing retaining wall encroachment at 289 Osborn Street, Philadelphia, PA, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Before you start, I'd just like to recognize Councilman Johnson, who's present for the hearing. Please state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman Squilla and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Patrick Ifrig, and I'm an engineering supervisor for the Department of Streets. I'm here to offer testimony on bill number 180004 as amended. This bill legalizes an existing retaining wall encroachment at 289 Osborn Street, Philadelphia, PA 19128 under certain terms and conditions. The Department of Streets does not support this ordinance. The existing retaining wall prohibits the ability to build legal footway per city plan. Thank you for your time. This concludes my testimony.
Okay, good afternoon, Chairman Squilla and members of the Streets and Services Committee. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 180004, which was introduced by Councilmember Jones on January 25th, 2018. Bill number 180004 proposed to legalize an existing precast interlocking blocking retaining wall at the southwest corner of McCary Street and Lansdowne Street, extending into the public right-of-way for a total length of approximately 40 feet. The City Planning Commission has concerns about retaining wall encroachment, which leaves no space for the proper placement of a stop sign at the intersection, and the street light has been blocked by the wall, so it is difficult for city to do maintenance work. At its meeting on February 20, 2018, the City Planning Commission recommended that Bill number 180004 not be approved. This concludes my testimony. I appreciate the opportunity to testify before you today, and be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, is there anyone else here to testify on Bill number 180004? Thank you for your testimony. Ms. Kelly, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 180216, an ordinance authorizing Timothy McGurman of St. Joseph's University to construct, own, and maintain a proposed sidewalk cafe and planters encroachment at 2461 to 81 North 54th Street under certain terms and conditions.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Chairman Squilla and members of the Streets and Service Committee. Again, my name is Patrick Gifford, and I'm an engineering supervisor for the Department of Streets. I'm here to offer testimony on Bill number 180216. This bill authorizes Timothy McGurman of St. Joe's University to construct, own, and maintain a proposed sidewalk cafe and planter encroachments at 2461-81 North 54th Street, Philadelphia, PA 19131, under certain terms and conditions. The Streets Department does not support this encroachment as it reduces the walking zone below complete streets minimums. However, it should be noted that 54th Street has abnormally large sidewalk right-of-way widths, and the remaining walking space will exceed that of most footways in the surrounding area. Thank you for your time. This concludes my testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairman Squilla and members of Streets and Services Committee. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 180216, which was introduced by Councilmember Jones on March 8, 2018. Bill number 180216 will permit sidewalk cafe and planters encroachments at 2461-81 North 54th Street. The encroachments consist of a 4-foot encroachment along the building line, as well as 8 feet 6 inches along the furnishing zone for the cafe's tables and chairs on the footway of North 54th Street. These encroachments will leave approximately 8 feet 6 inches of clear, unobstructed footway. The complete street policy recommends a minimum of 12 feet 6 inches walking zone space for North 54th Street. The proposed encroachments does not meet the minimum requirements. At its meeting on March 20th, 2018, the City Planning Commission recommended a bill number 180216 not be approved. This concludes my testimony. I appreciate the opportunity to testify before you today and be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony. Councilman Jones?
Yes, and we appreciate the Streets Department and the Planning Commission always opposing what district council people want, and sometimes you are right. But in this case, I would only say to my colleagues on this committee is that the whole ambiance up at 54th and City Line has evolved. And we are, very fortunate to have good neighbors like St. Joe's University who pay particular attention not only to safety, but into the needs of the community. Unlike some institutions that we may have heard from earlier, the town and gown issues that we have, the business relationships with entrepreneurs along that corridor is excellent. And it is a true testament to student and indigenous residents getting along and meeting and eating and greeting along that very corridor. And we want to encourage that as much as we can. And thank you.
Just real quick.
Councilman Greenlee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, Mr. Efrick, I'm, I guess, slightly confused by your last sentence here. You say it should be noted 54th Street has abnormally large sidewalks, and remaining walking space will exceed that of most footways in the surrounding area. So there's already footways that are smaller than this, but you're opposing this one. I'm a little confused.
So I'd be happy to clarify a little bit. We oppose the bill strictly on a technical basis on the complete street guidelines that we were given to enforce and regulate. If we were to do a pedestrian study on this corridor, it probably would show that the 8'6" remaining walking space would be sufficient, but without that study and without going through that effort, we just recommended that we should oppose this bill on a strictly technical basis.
Okay. I guess. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your testimony. And just for note, for most sidewalks, is it 5 or 6 feet clearance that is required?
It's half the footway width, half the city plan designated footway width. So in this case is 10 feet, I believe. I think 12'6", so they're 25-foot footways.
Okay, so it's half the footway. All right, thank you very much. Ms. Kelly, please read the title. Oh, any other people here to testify on this bill? I'm sorry. 180216.
Matt
I'm sorry, I didn't want to ignore you, Matt.
No
Just
problem.
state your name and proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Matt McClure, Ballard Spar, 180216. On behalf of the University of St. Joe's University, I handed up testimony earlier of Mr. Waddell Ridley, and we're just here to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, is there anybody else here to testify on bill number 180216? Seeing none, Ms. Kelly, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 180080, an ordinance authorizing the relocation of lines and the striking and abandonment of certain portions of a right-of-way reserved for drainage purposes and water main purposes, extending from Meade Street to Gravers Lane, southwest of Shawnee Street, on City Plan number 165, thereby reducing the width of the said right-of-way under certain terms and conditions.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chairman Squale and members of the committee. My name is Frank Morelli, Survey Bureau Manager of the Department of Streets, and I would like to offer the following testimony on bill number 180080. This is not an administration ordinance, but an ordinance requested by Mr. Peter Farnham. The purpose of this proposed ordinance is to authorize the relocation of the lines of a right-of-way for drainage and water main purposes reserved within the bed of a former Clearfield Street from Meade to Gravers Lane, southwest of Shawnee Street, thereby reducing the width of the right-of-way from 60 feet to 30 feet. There are no active sewer or water facilities in the right-of-way, and the Water Department has agreed to the proposed width reduction. The purpose of this action is to reduce the extent of the encumbrances of the right-of-way on the adjoining properties and clear area for the construction of a new single-family dwelling. The Department of Streets supports this ordinance and recommends to your favorable action to your committee. I'll be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Chairman Squilla and members of Streets and Services Committee. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 180080, which was introduced by Councilmember Bass on February 1st, 2018. Bill number 180080 will reduce the existing width of a right-of-way for drainage and water main purposes reserved within the former bed of Clearfield Street from Meade Street to Gravers Lane. No existing active utility line has been reported within the right-of-way. The 15 feet in width on either side of the right-of-way will be abandoned. It will result in a reduction of the width from 60 feet to 30 feet for the future drainage purposes. The Water Department is aware of this proposal and had no objections. At its meeting on February 20th, 2018, the City Planning Commission recommended Bill number 180080 be approved. This concludes my testimony. I appreciate the opportunity to testify before you today and be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, is there anyone else here to testify on bill number 180080? Seeing none, thank you. Ms. Kelly, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 171117, An ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on both sides of 75th Street from Brockton Road to Lansdowne Avenue.
I say good morning. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. My name is Dave DeLugos, and I'm testifying as an employee for the Department of Streets as a district traffic engineer. I'm here to testify on bill number 171117. The Department of Streets has no objections to this bill. Once passed, signs to enforce this regulation can be passed within 30 days. Thank you for the opportunity to appear. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Anyone else here to testify on bill number 171117? Seeing none. Thank you. Ms. Kelly, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 180262, an ordinance amending section 12701 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Bicycle Lanes by authorizing the Department of Streets to designate bicycle lanes in both directions on Parkside Avenue from North 53rd Street to Bryn Mawr Avenue, and authorizing the removal of travel lanes in the same limits, all under certain terms and conditions.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. My name is David DeLugos, District Traffic Engineer for the Department of Streets. I'm here to offer testimony on bill number 180262. The Department of Streets fully supports the passage of this bill to install new bike lanes along Parkside Avenue between Bryn Mawr North 53rd. I'd be happy to take any questions you have at this time.
Thank you. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bob Praviti, Policy Coordinator for the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in favor of Bill 180262. The Bicycle Coalition wishes to express their support for authorizing the Streets Department to designate bike lanes in both directions on Parkside Avenue and North 53rd Street to Bryn Mawr Avenue. And I will add that they worked very hard working closely with the community to get this done. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councilman Jones?
So I rode my bike into work, and I went through that very route. I understand clearly why we need bike lanes in both directions in there. And my bike is still in my office. It has not left since winter, but I'm looking forward to true spring so I can ride it home.
Thank you. And in fact, maybe we'll take this opportunity to invite you and the rest of the members of the Transportation Committee to join us for Bike to Work Day, Friday, May 18th, starting at 8:30.
I'll take you up on it.
Thank you. That's terrific.
Sounds good. Thank you for the invitation. Anyone else, any other questions? Seeing none, anyone else here to testify on bill number 180262? Thank you. And Ms. Kelly, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 180263, an ordinance amending section 12701 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Bicycle Lanes by authorizing the Department of Streets to designate bicycle lanes in both directions on Lansdowne Drive and South Concourse Drive from Sweetbriar Drive to 41st Street in Fairmount Park, and authorizing the removal of parking pursuant to section 12203 on both Lansdowne Drive and South Concourse Drive in the same limits, all under certain terms and conditions.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. My name is David DeLugos, District Traffic Engineer for the Department of Streets. I'm here to offer testimony on bill number 180263. The Department of Streets fully supports the passage of this bill. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Bob, anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, my name is Bob Praviti, Policy Coordinator for the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia, speaking in favor of bill number 180263. Thank you for this opportunity to speak in favor of the Streets Department to designate bike lanes in both directions from Lansdowne and South Concourse Drive, from Sweetbriar Drive to 41st Drive in Fairmont. We're delighted that we're adding bike lanes in this area, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, anyone else here to testify on bill number 180263? Thank you for your testimony. And Ms. Kelly, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 180218, an ordinance amending section 121131 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Electric Vehicle Parking to provide for the discontinued approval of new electrical vehicle parking spaces and the expiration of such parking spaces, all under certain terms and conditions.
First panel, we'll have Patrick Clark, Corinne O'Connor, and Robert Graff. And then the second panel is going to be Mike and Ryan, and the third panel will be Eileen and Larry, if that's okay. If there's more to testify, we'll have that after that. So if you guys would like to start.
Sure. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Squilla and members of the committee for inviting me to testify today on Council Bill 180218. My name is Patrick Clark. I'm a transportation planner and grants coordinator for the Managing Director's Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems, also known as OTIS. In July 2017, the city formed the Electric Vehicle Policy Task Force to encourage the use of EVs within the city's wider multimodal transportation network. On March 8, 2018, the EV Policy Task Force released a final report which issued recommendations to promote EV use in Philadelphia. EV technology is rapidly evolving, and the ongoing shift from petroleum to electricity is expected to accelerate. Thus, the task force focused on addressing the challenge of meeting the growing demands for charging while distinguishing it separate from parking challenges, which face drivers of all types of vehicles, particularly in dense neighborhoods in the city. With this point in mind, the task force has advocated for pursuing a multifaceted approach to EV charging that addresses the most common barriers to EV use, which include cost, convenience, and awareness. Among other recommendations, the final report recommends transitioning from the existing electric vehicle parking space program, also known as the EVPS program, and establishing alternative charging opportunities that offer greater public accessibility. The parking incentive offered by the EVPS program helped encourage early adoption of EVs. However, the task force found that providing dedicated parking to privately owned chargers in public space is not a scalable solution and does not maximize public charging opportunities, especially in dense urban areas in Philadelphia. Therefore, OTIS supports Council Bill 180218, which would close the existing EVPS program to new applicants and phase out existing EVPS chargers after 15 years. Transitioning from the EVPS program will help the city focus on encouraging the deployment of publicly accessible charging stations, which provide broader benefits to EV users residing and visiting Philadelphia. The EVPS program has provided utility to a number of EV users in the city and has benefited early adopters. However, this model is not a long-term solution to addressing charging needs and encouraging EV growth. The EVPS program is not reliably accessible to the public. It's not scalable. It does not fully meet the needs of EV owners without access to curbside parking, and has had limited effectiveness in encouraging more EV use. The 15-year sunset provision featured in the bill was agreed upon as a fair and reasonable timeframe by members of the task force, which included city representatives, SEPTA, DVRPC, PPA, EV owners, and community representatives. A successful approach to long-term sustainable transportation should seek to expand all Philadelphians' access to safe, affordable, and low-carbon transportation. EVs are a key component of achieving that goal. The work of the EV Policy Task Force has shown there is a broad spectrum of potential partners who have embraced this vision and are already playing leadership roles in reducing carbon emissions. We look forward to continuing this engagement in the long term with local organizations, private sector partners, public utilities, and Philadelphians at large on how to make EVs work in the city. This concludes my testimony. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Rob.
Good afternoon, Chair Councilman Squilla, Vice Chair Councilwoman Kiona Sanchez, and members of Philadelphia City Council's Committee on Streets and Services. My name is Robert Graff. I manage the Office of Energy and Climate Change Initiatives at the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, DVRPC, the federally designated metropolitan planning organization for Greater Philadelphia. We serve the city of Philadelphia and its 8 surrounding counties in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. DVRPC is honored to have Councilman Squilla designated to represent the city of Philadelphia on its board. I'm honored to have been asked by Councilman O to testify at this hearing regarding Bill 180218, and am honored to have served as a member of the Electric Vehicle Policy Task Force established last year. I would like to take a moment to thank the staff of the Managing Director's Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems for putting together a clear, nicely designed report containing well-thought-out policy recommendations. I think Patrick Clark carried the heaviest staff load and deserves particular recognition. DVRPC has been involved in electric vehicle work for most of the past decade. In 2012, DVRPC released Ready to Roll, Southeast Pennsylvania's Regional Electric Vehicle Action Plan. DVRPC also carried out analysis for the Federal Highway Administration in 2015 and is currently working with the Plug-in Hybrid and Electric Vehicle Research Center of the Institute of Transportation Studies at the University of California, Davis, to develop a set of tools to understand how electric vehicle ownership and charging in our region is likely to proceed over coming years. As part of this work, DVI received data from PennDOT on the location at which every vehicle in the 5 counties of southeastern Pennsylvania is registered. The electric vehicle parking space program started in 2007. In 2012, there were only 7 plug-in electric vehicles registered in Philadelphia. By May of 2015, that number had increased to 314. The most recent data DVRPC has from November 7, 2017 showed that there were 733 electric vehicles registered in Philadelphia. This rate of increase is indicative of what is happening nationwide. Many observers believe that the global automobile market is on the cusp of a profound transformation from gasoline and diesel-burning internal combustion engines to using electricity-driven motors to move cars. Philadelphia is part of this transition. Plug-in electric vehicles are preferable to internal combustion gasoline or diesel vehicles in several ways. They have no tailpipe emissions, which is good for the air quality in neighborhoods where they replace petroleum engines. Even including the pollutants associated with electricity generation, electric vehicles are cleaner. According to the Union of Concerned Scientists, a typical new gasoline car in Philadelphia gets about 29 miles per gallon. An all-electric vehicle here travels almost 3 times as far, 83 miles, before it produces the same amount of carbon dioxide from its electricity use. Other emissions are similarly reduced. If our electricity generation continues to get cleaner with natural gas, solar, and wind replacing coal generation, the emissions per mile will similarly decrease. Reducing greenhouse gas and other emissions associated with cars is key to meeting broader greenhouse gas reduction goals, and electrification is an excellent way to reduce the greenhouse gases and other undesirable emissions associated with driving cars. However, it is important to remember that emissions are only one of the many challenges associated with relying on personal vehicles, whether they are powered with gasoline or electricity, to meet transportation needs. Electric vehicles, while better than gasoline vehicles, are not a panacea. Like gasoline vehicles, electric vehicles contribute to congestion, hit Philadelphians walking or riding bicycles, and have the same parking requirements as gasoline vehicles. This must be kept in mind during discussions about electric vehicles. 1 week ago today, Nashville, Tennessee's Mayor David Briley signed a Declaration of Transportation Independence. Part of that declaration reads as follows: Nashvillians should have the right to choose whether to drive, take public transportation, walk, or bike for the majority of trips. Get to where they need to go every day, affordably, quickly, and safely, no matter how they get around. Decide not to own a car or be forced to buy a second one. Decide not to use a car to make every trip because there is another option. Have access to transportation that is equitably provided without regard to age, race, income, or neighborhood. Walkable communities with sidewalks prioritized around transit stops and safer crossings and intersections that make walkable, affordable, and transit-oriented communities possible. Most of us would agree that these principles apply in Philadelphia as well. Transportation is not about cars, it is about people and their communities. Electric vehicles, while better than gasoline vehicles, are far from virtuous, particularly in dense neighborhoods where cars arguably take up more than their fair share of precious space. However, for those cars that are in the city, it is better that they are electric rather than gasoline powered, at least when they are moving. When they are parked, they provide no public benefit relative to their gasoline counterparts. In fact, they're at a disadvantage in some cases. In order for electric vehicles to meet their economic promise of being less expensive to operate than gasoline cars, they need to be able to get most of their power when parked either near home or near work. Fast charging is possible on occasion, but is not practical or affordable on a regular basis. Charging while parking is easily done for car owners that have dedicated off-street parking. This is what 93% of the electric vehicles registered in the city do. There are 733 plug-in electric vehicles registered in the city and 68 on-street electric vehicle charging stations. Only 7% of the electric vehicles registered in the city charge while parked on city streets. It is important to note that the city still permits homeowners to place charging infrastructure at curbside. It will simply no longer reserve that space for an electric vehicle. Thus, if a homeowner lives in an area where on-street parking is plentiful enough for them to be confident in being able to park in front of their home, nothing prevents them from installing a charging station. The 7% of electric vehicle owners who do have dedicated on-street parking and charging will be able to continue to use those for 15 years. Those who don't want to own a gasoline car, have no dedicated off-street parking, and live in an area where on-street parking is scarce have several choices. Arrange to rent an off-street space where they can park and charge their electric vehicle, charge at their place of work or another location to which they drive their electric car on a regular basis, or charge at a public charger in their neighborhood. The Electric Vehicle Task Force contains 9 strategies to facilitate electric vehicle charging infrastructure. These are laid out starting on page 23 of the report. The report makes it clear that Philadelphia will actively pursue these strategies. Of course, residents of Philadelphia who don't want to own a gasoline car, or indeed any car at all, have transportation options other than private electric vehicles, including using transit, cycling, walking, using a car share service, using transportation on demand services, or renting a car for longer trips. Note that none of these options requires dedicated on-street parking in front of residents' houses, and some have additional benefits over electric cars, such as even lower emissions of greenhouse gases and pollutants. I support the passage of Bill 180218. Thank you for your kind attention. I'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Thank you. Corinne, do you want to, before you ask questions?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Corinne O'Connor, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director of the Philadelphia Parking Authority. Thank you for inviting me to testify on Bill number 180218. For the last 18 months, I've had the pleasure of being a member of the city's Electric Vehicle Task Force. The task force consists of members of the electric vehicle industry, members of government, along with electric vehicle owners and operators. It was very informative, and I'm happy to have taken part. During those months, the committee looked at the city's current program and the future of electric vehicles in our city. I especially want to thank Otis and Councilman Owen Squilla for spearheading this initiative and bringing all the stakeholders to the table on this issue. Bill number 180281 reflects the committee's findings, and I'm in support of the passage of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody involved in the process. I know it was controversial and tense at times, but the task force was did a great job of engaging both users and residents, and I think, not that everybody's happy with the end recommendations, but I think what had happened from that, there were some compromises and some discussions, which hopefully could help move our EV use to become bigger and better in the city of Philadelphia. I think when we first did it, people were concerned with how are we able to grow EV use in the city of Philadelphia, and I think these recommendations will allow Philadelphia to start looking at a product and looking at a policy in a way to move forward to make sure that we have the ability to continue to grow the uses of EVs in the city of Philadelphia. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your inclusion. And I know one question, Patrick, was, I know you had the task force meetings, but you had a couple public meetings too.
Sure. We had a public meeting in January where we invited members of the public to provide input to the proposed recommendations that were released in a draft report in January.
Okay, thank you. And I know the public hearing is today, so we appreciate that input. Is there, first of all, I'd like to recognize Councilman Tautenberger, Councilwoman Bass, and Councilman Johnson, I think, and Quinones, and everybody else who's here. But is there any other questions to this panel before we move on? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. Next panel. Mike and Ryan, I guess, or all four of you could go up there. Irene, Larry, Mike and Ryan, and then we'll get whoever else wants to testify.
Good afternoon. My name is Eileen Wilder. My colleague Bill West, who is sitting next to me, and I are co-chairs of the Parking Committee for the Philadelphia Crosstown Coalition. It's a group of 32 registered community organizations from across the city. We are here today to urge you to vote in favor of Bill number 180218, which addresses the closing down of the current curbside charging program for electric vehicles. Bill and I served as community members of the city's Electric Vehicle Policy Task Force, which conducted a broad inquiry into the potential for bringing large numbers of electric vehicles to the city. The report of the task force contains a large number of recommendations and frankly is a very encouraging document. Although replacing gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles with electric vehicles on a one-to-one basis would do nothing to alleviate the problems of traffic and parking congestion in the city, it would substantially improve the quality of the air we breathe and also give us a quieter city. One of the jobs of the task force was to figure out what to do with the current electrical vehicle parking space program, which provides residents with dedicated curbside parking spaces in front of their homes where they may install chargers and recharge their electric vehicles. Although this program is certainly well-intentioned, there is simply not enough space on our streets to accommodate the large number of electric vehicles that the task force envisions. To use a piece of jargon, the program is not scalable. There are also quite a few other uses competing for space at the curb. In addition to standard parking spots, there are handicap spots which are required by law, bus stops, car share spots, taxi stands, spots for diplomats, and loading zones. As our economy shifts to online shopping, the need for loading zones in both commercial and residential areas will only increase. We should also mention bicycle lanes, such as the one that was recently installed on Chestnut Street in West Philadelphia. It runs along the curb. The parking lane sits between the bike lane and the regular traffic lanes. Finally, some parts of the curb must be cut free. Fire engines need to get to fire hydrants, and the curb space near intersections must be open so that motorists, pedestrians, bicyclists, skateboarders, scooter riders, and others can all see one another. We have too many crashes in this town. In our opinion, Bill 180218 faithfully renders into legislative language the recommendation of the task force that relate to the current on-street charging program. I should emphasize that the task force reached its conclusion by consensus. The group included 3 private citizens who are electric vehicle owners. The relevant sections of the bill are 3D, E, and F. 3D says there will be no new charging spaces established under the program. 3E says the existing spaces are non-transferable, and if the permit holder ceases to own or leave an electric vehicle, the permit will not be renewed. This section also establishes a sunset provision. Any spaces still in existence under the program in 2033 will be eliminated at that time. 3F says that if the permit holder ceases to reside at the address to which the charging space is tied, the charging space will go away immediately. We think this bill represents good policy arrived at through a good procedure. We heartily encourage you to vote for Bill 180218. And with that, we'd be happy to take your questions.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Squilla and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today regarding Council Bill number 180218. My name is Mike Trask, and I serve as Principal Regulatory and Rate Specialist at PECO, Philadelphia's electric distribution company. Since 2010, I've helped lead PECO's efforts to support increased transportation electrification in order to deliver the benefits of a cleaner environment and new consumer choices to our communities. On behalf of PECO, I'd like to thank you, Councilman O, members of the committee, and the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems for inviting PECO to share their views with members of the city's Electric Vehicle Policy Task Force. The discussions of the EV Task Force led to consideration of a number of models to support the future widespread deployment of these vehicles throughout the city. PECO strongly supports the recommendations of this report and looks forward to working with the city to help develop pilot programs and long-term strategies to offer new electric vehicle charging options to city residents. As the task force report on January 17th notes, densely populated cities like Philadelphia, where large segments of the population rely on on-street parking for their vehicles, face challenges in providing access to charging. This challenge must also be considered in the context of other ways Philadelphia has traveled to work, school, community, and recreational activities. Adding EVs as a clean transportation option, along with transit, biking, walking, and carpooling options, will lead to increasingly clean air in our neighborhoods and lower operations and maintenance costs for many families. Transportation electrification also should be considered in the context of Philadelphia's role as a leader in sustainability and magnet for individuals and businesses with a passion for protecting our environment. As we move forward implementing the city's GreenWorks vision, we should recognize that electrifying transportation is an essential element to reach these goals. The first step in developing scalable, sustainable solutions for integrating EVs into the city's urban landscape is receiving public input and conducting analysis of options. The task force and the report it produced successfully completed this task. PECO supports the recommendations included in Strategy 2 that include a range of options for providing access to charging for Philadelphians who own EVs today and the growing numbers who will choose these vehicles in the future. encouraging new off-street solutions, implementing a neighborhood demand-based model for establishing public charging locations, piloting fast charging pods, and promoting workplace charging represent important pieces of this puzzle. We're anxious to work with the city to collaborate with providing these options and to support efforts by the city to secure funding through the VW settlement and other programs. Bill number 180218 also implements the report's recommendation that the city transition away from the dedicated on-street charging space program in favor of these more scalable and sustainable solutions. The compromise proposed in 2017 that would allow these spaces to remain but make them available to non-electric drivers as 2-hour parking during daytime hours appears to be fair and reasonable solution for EV owners and non-EV owners. The bill also provides a lengthy transition period for owners of existing on-street chargers with a 15-year phase-out of the previous city program. By 2033, a range of options for vehicle charging, including options that would be far more compatible with longer range and larger battery-sized cars that are already coming to the market, should be readily available throughout the city. PICO does suggest, either as an amendment to this bill or in a subsequent legislation, that council should consider providing more flexibility for how curbside chargers will be treated at the end of the transition period. 15 years from now, EVs will almost certainly be far more widespread, and these chargers may be popular neighborhood amenities. Adding a provision to the bill that would direct the city to study alternatives to mandatory removal of the chargers before that requirement comes into effect, or offering owners the opportunity to sell the equipment to the city at nominal cost could be considered. The next step in ensuring that the benefits of electric transportation can be achieved in Philadelphia is setting electrification goals and developing regional plans to achieve these goals. We are very proud of the role that PICO has played supporting Pennsylvania House Bill 1446, which Council has also endorsed, that would establish a state electrification goal and authorize utilities to fund the development of regional infrastructure plans. We expect this bill to be considered in the House of Representatives this week. It represents a rare bipartisan opportunity for our state and region to work together and look forward, and we thank all of you for your support. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify today, and I'll be pleased to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. Do you want to testify before you ask questions?
That's what she said.
Okay. Do you want to come up and? Ryan, right?
Good afternoon, Chairman. My name is Ryan Barnett. I'm a policy associate with Tesla. I'd like to thank Councilman O and Councilman Squilla and other members of the committee for the opportunity to present this testimony on the future of electric vehicle charging in Philadelphia and Bill 180218. Tesla is an American manufacturer of the world's most advanced electric vehicles, electric vehicle supply equipment, battery energy storage, and solar energy products. While best known for its best-in-class vehicles, Tesla has been investing in global infrastructure network of EV charging stations, including plans for several supercharger developments in and around the Philly metro area this year. While automakers and governments around the world continue to push for greater EV adoption, EV charging infrastructure is quickly becoming one of the most significant barriers to growth in this segment. Leadership and initiatives like the development of the city's EV policy task force are critical to ensuring that the benefits of transportation electrification are enabled and accessible as public demand increases. As EV manufacturers and EVSE providers, Tesla is a natural proponent of the city's goals to establish a long-term and comprehensive approach to EV charging access and use. We're encouraged by the infrastructure strategies proposed by the task force to ramp up and support present and future demand for EV charging services. We credit the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems, OTIS, and participating individuals and organizations for developing a well-founded recommendations to promote EVSE development and stimulate EV adoption in the Philadelphia region. Our experience working with the relevant city offices and other stakeholders, namely PICO, to site and develop level 3 supercharging locations within the city has been positive thus far. We look forward to refining and improving our coordination to support a more efficient expansion of the city's infrastructure network, charging infrastructure network. Pursuant to proposed Bill 180218 and the city's EV Policy Task Force recommendations, Tesla supports the sunsetting of the Philadelphia's EVPS program, provided that more sustainable curbside charging opportunities are explored. As structured, the program was a creative incentive for early EV adopters, but was not designed to support a higher penetration of EVs or improve public access to charging. In previous comments to this committee, we've made reference to a city-managed program in the similarly parking-constrained city of Amsterdam as one such example for consideration. The facilitation of high-density charging hubs with private industry partners, as referenced in the task force document, is another high-yield urban charging solution the city should consider. Recognizing that Philadelphia continues to see a surge in construction of multi-unit dwellings, it's increasingly more important that EV-ready building codes be strengthened and enforced to ensure that new construction is compatible with transportation electrification and mitigates expensive retrofits by owners and landlords in the future. We welcome the opportunity to be a resource and a private sector partner for future EV charging development in Philadelphia, and thank you for the opportunity to provide this testimony.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and we appreciate your participation and interest and hopefully willingness to continue to work with our city officials ongoing to make it the best possible opportunity for our residents and visitors to be able to explore EV use. And Mike, I wanted to say too that the good ideas about looking at this in the future of using possible curbside, that's existing curbside uses for future use, depending on whether it's bought for by the city or transformed into public use opportunities, because the more places that we would have available electrical charging would make it easier to then grow our field of EV users. So thank you so much for that. And also, PICO, I know, is a part of the City of Philadelphia, and we continue to work with Otis and the task force moving forward to come up with future recommendations so that we can implement them. So thank you so much. Councilman O?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you very much, everyone, for your testimony. Just a question and a point of information. So the first is that I understand that as you testified, Tesla is currently looking at the possibility of installing some supercharger sites in Philadelphia. And typically when that is done, in comparison to past history, Tesla appears to be kind of a leader in that, in the sense that when Tesla sets up a supercharger site, typically other charging sites start to appear.
That's correct. We're often first in market, and we're open to co-developing sites. Oftentimes when we develop a site first in market, those other EVSE developers will come behind, since a large bit of the work and the service and all that needs to go into developing that site has been done by us on the front end. So we welcome the opportunity to work with other private developers and public partners.
All right, thank you. And I just wanted to state publicly that we did introduce a bill to incentivize EV-ready parking facilities. People ask me about that. It has been given to the parking lot owners. It was kind of created as a draft. They have had it for a while, and we're looking for their input because they're the ones who are going to let us know whether those incentives are substantial enough and what they're going to do about new and existing parking facilities. But that was a critical part of the recommendations of the EV task force. That has been done. We're waiting for the parking facility owners to get back to us. Thank you very much.
Councilman Tautenberger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for Tesla. The supercharging stations, would they be available to other makes and models of vehicles?
So Tesla's infrastructure network currently is private and proprietary. So it's a service directly for Tesla owners.
For Tesla owners only? Okay. And where would these be located? Or is the proposal?
We'd rather not disclose the locations. They're still under development, but they're Center City District.
On the street or privately?
Privately owned.
Private garage?
Privately
In
owned.
private garages?
Privately owned garages or lots, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And is there any other questions? Is there anyone else here to testify on bill number 180218? Please proceed. Thank you. Come on up, Dave.
Hello.
Please state your name for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Hello, my name is John Andrew McGinty. My wife and I are EV owners today. That's powered by our solar panels on our roof. And I've read the report from the task force, the Otis task force, a very comprehensive report, well thought out, well researched, but it's absolutely ludicrous that strategy one would be to eliminate the current EV parking spaces. You know, and going after the start with 68 people. You know, we're the leaders today in this technology. We're out there. We have a dedicated space too, and I think an alternative factor too. It doesn't take up another spot. We gave up our spot for our driveway, which we didn't have to do. Well, we did. It was fine for us to do that. So, you know, we talk about the report's great. To go after us, the leaders today, and I've heard a lot of testimony about plans and what is it? You know, the future plans, all these things in the future. We're the leaders today who are doing this, and to go after first is ludicrous, and it doesn't make any sense. Certainly, we're reasonable people, and we think that, you know, certainly at some point when a reasonable infrastructure was in place, that, yeah, we could phase out some of the other things. But I'll just tell you, yesterday, somebody came to my door and said, "Oh, you have an electric car?" Like, yeah. It's like, "Oh, I just moved on Wharton Street." And I said, "Oh, yeah, how do you like it?" And I told him it's great. And then he said, and I said, "I want you, we're gonna look at one." I said, "Well, beware that, do you have a garage?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, be aware that they're not gonna give any more spaces." And I said, "Well, that defeats, I'm not gonna get one." So, you know, we're reasonable people, but going after this first is ludicrous, as I said. It really wonders what's the motivation for all of that. And I would just ask the committee to vote no on this bill, or at least put it in the future until you can demonstrate that we have some alternatives in place for the leaders who are doing something today, who are actually walking the walk and not talking the talk.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, members of the Streets and Service Committee, and especially our Councilman Squilla and Councilman David O. My name is Larry Spector. I'm here appearing as a member of the board of the Society Hill Civic Association. On behalf of the association, we appreciate the opportunity to testify on behalf of the bill 180218. This bill will permanently close the electric vehicle parking space program and remove all existing EVPS signage no later than January 1, 2033. The association is the registered community association that represents over 5,000 residents in the Society Hill neighborhood. Our boundaries are from the Delaware River to 8th Street and from Walnut to Lombard Streets. The association strongly supports the increase of clean vehicles in the city and all efforts to achieve cleaner water and air, but we do support the phasing out of the current EVPS program, and we support the recommendations in the task force final report. Those recommendations provide a roadmap for a public electric vehicle charging infrastructure that will allow significantly more electric vehicle owners to charge their vehicles than the prior system. And it will end the practice of giving an exclusive parking space to homeowners that obtained EVPS permits. Councilman Squilla and O have strongly supported our neighborhood in trying to correct the situation that we testified about in council on March 30th, 2017. Our neighborhood in particular has a disproportionate number of the total permits issued under the EVPS program. The bill allows existing parking spaces for private charging stations to remain up for up to 15 years, but in the meanwhile, it ends the proliferation of those stations. It ends the 24-hour EV-only exclusivity of the spaces by codifying a 2-hour parking for all vehicles from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The recommendation will reduce the amount of signage on Franklin light poles and other poles in the area. It will stop this ad hoc installation of charging stations that takes place and that takes up valuable space on the public sidewalks and causes a tripping hazard for some residents in our area. It will also free up more permits for handicap parking spaces. In conclusion, the Society Hill Civic Association strongly supports the task force recommendation that the city put a hold on the issuance of new EVPS permits and instead have the Streets Department develop a publicly accessible charging infrastructure. We strongly support the general direction in which the task force is heading, and we give our vote of confidence in the future of EV charging as recommended by the task force. Thank you, and I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Dave?
Yes, hi, my name is David DeLugos. I'm testifying as a private citizen. I'm off the clock. I am a electric vehicle non-Tesla owner. I do not oppose this bill. However, that I have serious concerns that this is being introduced without the accompanying bill that Councilman O has suggested. As I'm sure Councilman O has understood, there are several concerns from the garage owners in the city. I have encountered many of these myself. First of all, that there are currently chargers in Center City and in Philadelphia. However, that they are in private lots, they are spread thin in certain places, and often they are blocked by non-electric vehicle charging, non-electric vehicle, we call them ICE cars, internal combustion engines. There's no enforcement of these cars blocking the existing spaces, nor is there, because that would be dependent upon the parking lot owner to enforce the electric vehicle spaces. I have come to Center City many times trying to get one of the electric vehicle charging spaces. They're often blocked and the parking lot owner does not care, does not want to do anything, or they are non-functional like some of the charge points on Arch Street. Second, that they take up a lot of space in private garages. Tesla especially, like if you see some of their installations outside of the city, they take up what could be a whole floor of a parking lot in a private garage. That does not account for non-Tesla owners like myself. If they're talking about people piggybacking upon Tesla, I would not count on that because, again, these things take up a lot of space wherever you go. So there's no one looking, I appreciate what Tesla's doing, but there's no one looking out for non-Tesla owners in the other groups. There's not that same kind of organizational push for non-Tesla owners. The last point is that, when my car and many cars have what we call level 1 chargers, which is basically a plug into a 120-volt socket. I have tried to plug in at public and private garages throughout the city, and more often than not, and usually not, I am told that I'm not allowed to plug into a regular 120-volt charger, which would make me happy so I can plug in anywhere I want, but they're worried about liability, that it's going to short out my car or something like that, which I'd be happy to sign my rights away for if I have the opportunity to use level 1 charging. But again, just to reiterate that having this bill, to discontinue the new offering of on-street spaces without an accompanying bill to enforce and encourage new electric vehicle charging spaces is problematic because there will be a gap, and we don't know if there's a solution to the other side of it. I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you. Would you like to testify too before we ask questions?
Sure. Hi, my name's Mina Ravel. I represent 350 Philly. I'm a Philadelphia resident. I've spoken here many times on the need for rapid action on climate and the need to electrify our transportation system. So I'm not going to go into that. But kind of what the last person said, we can no longer afford to sit on our hands on this. We need curbside charging level 2 charging ideally, not Tesla specific, so that any EV can charge. Paris has it. A friend just showed me photos of it. It's just along the curb, like, that's what we need. So my question for you is, when are we getting curbside chargers? This bill is all great, but when are we getting curbside charging? I have family and friends waiting to invest in electric vehicles, but they can't.
And I thank you for your testimony, and thank everybody for testifying. Obviously, the task force, the point of the task force was to know that the reason why they left it for 15 years was to continue the use for 15 years to do that. And not that it's going to take us 15 years to get curbside charging, because I don't believe it's going to take that long, but it is a work in progress, and we do have a lot of things to work through before we get there. So I think by allowing the initial adopters to have the ability to charge their vehicles for 15 years will give us time to catch up. Now, our goal with this task force is to grow the use of EVs. And I think, as Councilman O and the task force would say, understanding our current policy, that we would not be able to continue to grow with the actual policy we had before that. So I don't want to give a specific timeline and say we're going to have this in 3 years. We'll have curbside parking throughout the city, because I don't know that to be true, but I know that we are working with Otis, the task force, and us here in council, and with all the advocates, not only Tesla, because there are other users beside Tesla, but they are a driving force in there, and I know Tesla could adapt to other chargers, but other chargers can't adapt to Tesla.
You've got that.
So, maybe there's a way to come in the future where, as technology changes and as we move forward, we'll be able to see greater things and greater opportunities along the way. So it may not be only curbside charging. There may be other options, and who knows, there may be ways that you bring something inside, you charge it, and bring it back out at the end in the future. So I know we're actively looking at this, and it's a priority. Otis is very serious about not only giving the ability to run the task force, but listening to all these opportunities. Unfortunately, we're not going to make everybody happy along the way, but knowing that it is a priority to the city of Philadelphia. I know it's not an answer to you when curbside charging is going to be there, but I think it would be unfair to actually put a date on it, because I don't know if we know that at this time.
How can we participate with Otis, I guess? Like, someone knows that the car's on their way out and they're trying to make the decision for the next car. How can they say, oh, put something in my neighborhood or in my 3-block radius or something, in the next year, so I feel I'm making the right decision with my next car?
I guess what we could do is, Patrick, can you come up 1 second to ask you a question? Do we know if we're going to have ongoing reports of state of EV
Yes,
growth?
so that's part of a cover letter that is on the front of the report. So we'll be reporting on progress, incremental progress, with the EV task force goals and recommendations. I think I have to go back to the actual report, but there'll be a reexamination in, I think, a year or two, and we'll reexamine the assumptions, findings, and recommendations of the report to make sure they're still in line with current technology. And then intermittently, we'll be producing reports that update the public on progress regarding EV charging and infrastructure.
So at that yearly report, there will be saying we added 12 charging stations, or
Yes,
whether
we
they're
will
Tesla
keep
or
track of that.
And we'll know exactly where we're going.
Yes.
And then are we also going to be able to use, I think you said it was 700, was it 700 EV registered vehicles? Do we know? 733 current vehicles. So we will be able to know to see if that number increases as we add these specific changes.
So Rob could talk to the specifics on that, but we work with the state to get that data. So we don't have direct access to it, but we could continue those.
But would that be part of the report?
efforts. I could talk to Rob.
Okay.
He's the one that communicates with the state on that.
Okay. Question?
Do we have a charging company selected already? Like ChargePoint or Blink or something else? We
So
don't.
That's the first step of the report is looking and engaging with the private sector on that.
Okay.
And
And could we have something like Amsterdam, where people can make requests for EV charging in their neighborhood. So that's how they grew, instead of a top-down where, you study where you think people might want to, maybe go by people's requests.
And I think that'd be good to create some type of portal or website to get input and feedback from the community where we would see greater usage in greater areas. I'm sure in the denser
You won't
areas.
see usage till you provide the solution.
Right. I think, we should be open to that. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I don't know if we have a plan in motion for that, but I think we should have, and maybe as part of the task force, as we give those recommendations, yearly reports, we could also be able to engage with the public on where and how, sort of like we do with bike share and other things, where you meet with the community, they put requests in and say, we want more charging in our area, we want more bike shares in our area. We do that now with that, so I think we should follow the same model. Councilman O?
Yeah, so the task force was put together by Otis and was, I thought, very, very inclusive. And our role here is to prepare the legislation that allows Otis and the task force and everyone else to go ahead to implement the actual publicly accessible EV charging. But during that time that the task force met, including EV owners or representatives from the EV owners, the technology appears to be growing rapidly. We certainly, in our time, looked at portable solar EV charging units for the top of parking facilities on streets. It appears that level 1 charging may not exist in 15 years. There's all kinds of things that are developing. And so we're preparing that way through legislation for the city to gather the expertise in making public charging stations. We've certainly looked at Europe. We've looked at other cities that have extensive public EV car sharing, all kind of things. I will say that in terms of the parking owners, so we gave them a financial incentive, which is what they're working on. So currently we have a high tax for parking facilities. If they are EV ready, we have put in there a reduction in their tax, and they are sitting on that right now. If the the legislation comes with a financial incentive for them, and so we shall see how that goes. But I've left it up to them to come back to us with whatever they think that number is supposed to be. I put a number in, they're going to give me a number, we're going to see from there.
The one thing I'll say to kind of my point before is that having the partnership with the garages is only as good as they're able to enforce the spots. There's a lot of times like the convention center lot, which has 3 spots, which is just a Juniper and Arch right here. If they're full, they let people use it, and then there's no way to know it's full, and then you have to drive around and you might run out of batteries before you find another one. So you need to have something in there to require that these are EV spaces only, and have some kind of enforcement mechanism to go with it.
So specifically, that was a big part of the consideration, even of if PPA were to put in charging units in dense areas, that the problem is people go in there and just use it for overly long periods of time. And so they would have signage, there would be limitations, there would be penalties for staying afterwards. And as you know, some commercial entities put EV charging almost as an advertisement, and people come up, park there all day long, and so yeah, so that part of it, we are looking to ensure that we have charging, and then the movement of the vehicles so that people can use them.
So, I mean, level 2, you kind of got to be there for several hours, 4 or 5 hours, or a work day. Level 3, not so much.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony and your participation. That will end our hearing. We will now go into a public meeting. Councilman Greenlee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the adoption of the amendments to Bills 180079 and 180004.
Second. Bill has been amended and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Amendments are passed for Bill number 180079 and 180004. Councilman Greenlee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the following bills be reported out as committee with favorable recommendation that the rules of council be suspended to allow for first reading for those bills at our next session of council. Bill numbers 180079 as amended, 180102, 180179, 180004 as amended, 180216, 180. 171, 117, 180262, 180263, 170925, 170926, and 180218.
Second. All bills have been read into the record in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. All bills with the suspension of rules have been passed out of committee. Thank you.